Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Tom, for giving me the opportunity to talk a bit about my projects and also my career, I guess, and my background. So I have this PowerPoint presentation. I'll switch between this presentation and maybe some PDFs or some websites or some pictures. Try to make it visual and entertaining as possible. So, share screen. I will share this second screen here. Okay, so I might be looking at my second screen, so not really in the camera, but you'll see my wonderful profile here for a while. So do you see the presentation?
Yeah, we can see it all clear.
Okay, great. So I would like to tell you about IM, Information Management and Engineering, in the Crisis Management branch of UNEP, United Nations Environmental Program. Next slide. Yes, there we go. So 3 parts to this. First, an introduction, tell you a bit about myself and my career. Second, tell you what does information management mean in the UN world. And then 3, IM, Information Management and Engineering, in the Crisis Management branch, where I'll talk about 2 specific projects. We have one in Haiti and one in Nigeria. But before I tell you about these projects, I did want to give you a bit of an overview of and some background information and overview of my career. The older model, I guess, of our grandparents or possibly parents, they used to have really very linear careers. You would get into a company after you graduate, and you'd possibly stay there for a decade or 2, maybe switch once or twice, and then you'd retire. And nowadays, as we all know, career paths can be a lot more dynamic, less linear, and more versatile. And I did want to tell you a bit about what I did after getting my engineering degree up until now, just to give you an idea of one career path and the different entities, outfits I worked for. So this is my resume that is actually up to date, believe it or not, with a few main steps, I guess, in my career. So first, 2005 is when I got my master's degree in environmental engineering here in Switzerland. I'm talking from Geneva here today. This is where I live. And I studied in Polytechnical School in Lausanne. I got that in 2005. On the lower part of the resume, there's these short-term assignments. So I did a number of little consulting gigs left and right, 2-3 months contracts. That also, I guess, is part of the work economy, gig economy nowadays. And then I've held 4 major positions in the past, 15 years. One as project engineer in the USA, a second one as project manager here in Switzerland, then one abroad with an NGO called Impact Initiatives, and now the 4th big one with UNEP that I started 2.5 years ago. So just to tell you a bit about my different experiences. While I was doing my master's thesis, I went to Burkina Faso to do a study on the efficiency of pivot irrigation systems. So that was my first, I guess, international experience and my first contact with really the real working environment. I was in a company, a sugarcane company that produced sugar from sugarcane. They have these huge fields of sugarcane down in south of Burkina Faso, produce sugarcane and produce sugar from a sugarcane. I'm wondering, and I'm trying not to lose too much. I should have prepared this in advance, definitely. If I can actually show you this from the sky, if I can find it really quick. So this is 15 years ago. Let's see if I can locate this quickly or not. So it's down here. It's a place called Banfora, actually. So that, okay. Yeah, and there we go. So you still see my screen, right? If I switch from the PowerPoint to this?
All good.
Okay, thanks. So here you have this huge plantation. It's all sugarcane, and they have some kind of a factory. Okay, well, I won't be able to locate that right now, where they produce sugar and they sell it from there, export it and sell it. So we're here in Banfora and Burkina Faso. So that's my first, I guess, experience with the professional world. I did a thesis on the efficiency of irrigation down there. Then I got my degree, very happy, started looking for work around Switzerland. Wasn't much at the time. I had family in the States, and I thought, okay, I'll go and try my luck over in California. It's 2006. There's this huge push for green economy. It's kind of new, and there's a lot of outfits out there who are looking for entry-level engineers. So while there's no jobs in Switzerland at that point, there's actually a lot in the States. And I thought I'd try my luck over there. So I went there, and it took me 4 to 5 months and 100 applications before I got my first job, just so you know. Wasn't straightforward at all. Involved perseverance and a lot of cover letter writing. That first job, I worked for this Fortune 500 company called Shaw E&I, Environment and Infrastructure. That doesn't exist anymore because it got bought by another company in the meantime, but it's a pretty large company over there. And I was working here, so this is Salt Lake City, this is Utah, and there's this huge, I don't know if you can see it very well on the screen, but military base that extends where I'm showing here, where they test weapons and they train. And so they have several polluted sites over there due to these activities. And my employer at the time, Shaw and I, had a large contract with the US military. I can't remember what department, but Department of Defense, let's say, to do some remediation on about 25 of these polluted sites. So we would either dig out the polluted sites and send them out for treatments, or we would cover them with liner so that the water doesn't seep through the ground and dissolve the chemicals and get into the aquifers, into the drinking water. There, I kind of started information management there. I was the young engineer in charge of all the spatial aspects of this project, explaining where, locating these polluted sites, explaining where the liner should go down, where we should excavate, the depth, and controlling all of this with my total station here that you can see on the lower left. I was stationed in California, actually. The office was in California, and I would go to Utah for the field work. So it was about half California, half Utah. It was really interesting, really challenging job. Very happy that was the first opportunity that was given to me. It was really interesting. Hard work, but I learned a lot, and it turned out to work quite well for me. After 2 years of doing that, we were done with this project, and I got, I guess, a bit homesick, and I went back to Switzerland. So I didn't mention, but I am Swiss, and I'm from Geneva. Although I've lived abroad and traveled quite a bit and lived several years in other countries, I'm now back in Geneva, and this is my place of birth. So 2008, after 2 years of this first job experience, I went back home, and then fairly quickly, now that I had the first couple lines, good solid lines on my resume, fairly quickly got another entry-level job or junior-level job, let's say, with an engineering outfit here in Switzerland. It's called CSD Engineers. And I worked on a variety of projects, all related to environmental engineering, and a lot on urban drainage. So what you're looking at here, you can't see much, I realize, but it's a map of states and the age of drainage of the sewer system in a part of Geneva, Switzerland. Worked on that a bit. I worked a lot. I worked on building diagnostics, lead paint, asbestos, and all that kind of stuff. I worked on river restoration and many other things for this engineering office for 3 years. Very interesting. Also learned a lot. So with these first 2 jobs, I did quite a bit of GIS and CAD, computer assisted design work. and I started really enjoying these softwares. And I thought I would specialize in this, but I didn't really have a degree or anything that said, you know, Sven is a GIS specialist. So for a while, I did a couple odd jobs. I got out of the private sector, did a bit more of NGO type work. I thought it suited my personality better. And I went back to school to get an additional degree in GIS, which I finished in 2013. So for 2 years there, yeah, odd jobs, different consultancies. I went back. I was 34, I think, at the time. I went back to bartending for a bit while I was studying to get some money on the side. And I did this additional degree. And this is the master's. No, it was not a master's. It's a complementary certificate, they call it over here, on, let me translate this, on the, I put together a tool to calculate the risk of pesticide transfer between agricultural plots with GIS. Then this is when my career started to become really quite interesting and adventurous. I had my degree, my new degree in GIS, and I was looking for jobs in GIS. And I got in touch with this outfit called Impact Initiatives. And they were looking for someone to open up one of their offices, a new office in Niger, in the country of Niger. And I thought, why not? Looks like a cool opportunity. So I went down there, and on the left side here, these are country codes, ISO country codes for where I've worked between 2014 and 2018. So I started in Niger, not Nigeria, two different countries, and stayed there for a year and a half and opened up this office. Then with this same NGO, they seconded me to other agencies. They do that a lot in this humanitarian world. You know, lend employees from one organization to another, and they call it secondment. Then they seconded me to UNICEF, and I worked with UNICEF in Haiti, Ethiopia, Pakistan, South Sudan, and then went back to Central African Republic, but again with impact initiatives. Anyways, too many details, but for these 4 years, I went in these different countries and did humanitarian information management. So in Niger, this is what it looks like. I would collect data in the field, either directly or with colleagues. Actually, then I trained a group of people that would go out there and collect the data for me. So we'd do this data collection, and we'd process it in databases, etc., analyze it, and then communicate it through visualization methods, such as this map that shows for this village in the southeast of Niger what the infrastructures look like. So you might not be able to see it on your screens, but you have water points here. You have a school on the upper right side, you have a store, and you have some basic information on the capacity of these water points and on the capacity of the schools, how many teachers they have, how many students they have, etc. So the whole idea here is we did this on 80 villages or something like that, and continuously updated information, continuously visited the places, called the village chiefs, etc., to have an updated view of what's going on there so that we can communicate this to UNHCR. So that's I was working for, you can see on lower right, REACH initiative. That's a part of impact initiatives. And we were mandated by UNHCR to get this information and provide it to them. So UNHCR could understand what the situation is in these villages. They could see, okay, this village has enough water points, it's fine, or no, it doesn't. It only has one water point for 500 people, and we need to figure out a way to dig out a new borehole, a new water pointer to bring water to these people because they're in need of water. Same with schools, same with health centers, etc. Because, okay, what I failed to mention here is that in this part of Niger, at the time, and still today, unfortunately, it's right on the border with Nigeria where they have Boko Haram problems. So there's a lot of refugees crossing the border from Nigeria to Niger, seeking refuge in these villages. So there's an influx of people, which stresses out the local resources. And UNHCR wants to know what the situation is and how they can direct their funds or activities to alleviate some of the suffering going on over there. So that's just the general context. Then another example of this information management. This is Bangui in Central African Republic. The map you see on the right is a bit of Bangui, where we also studied, let's say, push and pull factors for the city of Bangui after a crisis. So there's a civil war going on in Central African Republic. There's many problems, among which religious tensions between Muslims and Christians. In Bangui, there's been massacres and people have displaced. There's Muslim quarters and there's Christian quarters, and we're trying to study the dynamics to see how we can possibly, through humanitarian interventions and programming, ease up some of the tension. You would have, Christian kids crossing Muslim neighborhoods to go to schools, or Muslim people coming into Christian communities to gather water, which creates conflict and tension. And so we're trying to understand how all this operates and what we could do with the municipality of Bangui, with humanitarian actors, to ease up some of this tension. Try to do some kind of urban planning, so to speak, around this. Where should we build new water points so that people don't need to cross, not dangerous neighbors, but don't need to cross neighbors they don't feel comfortable going through. Where should we locate these new water points? Where should we, hopefully build new schools, health centers, hospitals, etc. All this, of course, is dependent on funding. There's no miracle to all of this, but we're trying with these tools to figure out smart ways of easing up some of this tension. So on the upper right is a picture of me, a very white guy in the middle of all my Central African colleagues, and that's the team of surveyors or enumerators that would go out in all these different neighborhoods and gather information by talking with people, by getting GPS points, by filling in, forms on their smartphones about the state of water points in the schools. They would go out and gather all this information so I can then build these maps. And on the lower left is just a picture of the Ubangi River that's here. So this is, and it's a huge river. I mean, it's really impressive. So where are we? We're here. Just loading Bangui, okay. That's Bangui. And yeah, this huge river here, that's the border between Central African Republic and Democratic Republic of the Congo. And it's really large. I mean, I'm not used to in Europe seeing rivers that large. It's like a lake somehow. It's really pretty impressive. Okay, let's see, where was I here? Go back up to these slides. So I did that for several years, and in these different contexts, worked on a drought in Ethiopia, conflict in Central African Republic, in South Sudan, etc. A lot on WASH, which is the acronym for water, sanitation, and hygiene. So that kind of ties back to my environmental background. I've been working with water, whether it's irrigation in Burkina Faso or urban drainage in Switzerland or water points in these countries. There's always this what's the word? This line that relates to somewhat of an environmental matter. I did that for several years. It was great. I mean, really interesting, hard work, but I really enjoyed these years of being out there in these different countries and meeting all these people and working on these issues. Difficult, but really interesting. Then on the private side of things, I met my wife, wanted to build a family, and she told me, so what he did. Well, guy, you can't be going, leaving for 3 months all over Africa if you want to build a family and going to all these conflict places, and you got to settle down a bit. So I left that humanitarian emergency world and transitioned to development work with UNEP. So I was very lucky because it happened at the perfect time. I got this job. So again, interviews, you send out your resumes, etc. I was trying to change, and I got lucky because I got this really cool job that was really tailored for me almost, with the crisis management branch of UNEP. So it's still on this kind of conflicts and disaster side, but not on an emergency setting, but on a development, more long-term type of projects. And then I stopped traveling that much. I mean, I've traveled a lot with UNEP, but 1 or 2 weeks. So I go somewhere for 1 or 2 weeks, like Haiti or Nigeria, which I'll tell you about just afterwards. But I've stopped leaving for 3 months, so I could have a work-life balance or have some kind of family life, and I'd be home most of the time. And now we have a child, so life is all beautiful. So on this here, you see a few pictures. Upper left, sorry, is Sudan. Upper right is Kuwait. Somehow I happened to do a conference in Kuwait at some point. Lower left is Nigeria, and lower right is Haiti. Okay, so what is information management? I've been talking about that quite some bit. It's specific to the UN. I think this vocabulary is pretty specific to the UN. Basically, it means it's a data person. It's, I don't know what you would call it in another industry. It's digital engineer or data person. So it's about, like I said, collecting, analyzing, processing, and communicating data. Not to be confused with knowledge management. That is about tacit knowledge of employees, about experience. So just to explain the difference, information is data. It's easy to copy. You can put it on a hard drive, you can put it on a USB stick, give it to your colleague. Knowledge is hard to copy. It's about people, it's about experience. It's difficult to transfer experience from a senior person that's leaving to a newer person that's coming in. So this is the knowledge management cycle, or one of them that I found on internet. It's about capturing knowledge and sharing this knowledge around the organization. So the tools that are typically associated with this are publications, conferences, workshops, handovers, peer coaching, standard operating procedures, manuals, etc. Whereas information management is really about data. It's how you plan your data collection, how you collect it, you process all of it, you analyze it, you communicate it. So the principles, okay, I'll skip this, never mind. The tools you have associated with this, is to collect the data. You have rain gauges, pedometers, you got ODK and Kobo are softwares you put on your smartphone, and you answer surveys on your smartphone. You have radars, you have satellites, you have drones nowadays. All of this will allow you to collect environmental data. You process it through databases, you analyze it with specialized software, and you communicate it on websites, on Word documents, PDF reports, PowerPoints, or whatever, online dashboards, and ArcGIS online, and web maps, and all this kind of stuff. So that's the data part. That's my specialty. And the crisis management branch, these are the services we provide to our projects and to our different country programs. We have several country programs: Sudan, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Haiti. So we can help around building an IAM strategy. We can establish this data cycle. We can collect data. We can process, again, analyze it, visualize it with these different tools. And we do a lot of training also and capacity building. So we do knowledge sharing, knowledge management on information management, if you see what I mean. So yeah, that's my job. That's what I do nowadays. Is I put together fact sheets, dashboards, websites, maps, etc. on environmental information in these conflict or disasters affected countries, so that decision makers can understand what's going on and make informed evidence-based decisions and allocate their funding and their resources where it's appropriate. So, third part of this presentation today, two of these projects to tell you specifically, to give you a specific example of what I mean by information management and the crisis management branch with UNEP. First example in Haiti, second example in Nigeria. Haiti. Okay, let me switch to this map again. Haiti is over here. in the Caribbean. In 2016, pretty massive hurricane went through here from south to north, yeah, on the west side of Haiti, and completely wreaks havoc on this side of the island. Here on this coast, there's an electric network that's off the main grid that's led from Port-au-Prince. It's a mini grid, what they call a mini grid. And let me switch to here. Wait, no, this one. Okay, come on, reconnect. There's this grid, and this is MapX. It's an online cloud-based GIS that UN Environment developed, public access. There's these power lines, okay, that serve half a dozen villages and about 6,000 people with electricity. This was damaged by the hurricane that really ripped through the island here. And we had a mandate a project to go there and study the damage of this hurricane on these power lines, to put together a report, an analysis on the extent of the damage, and to explain, and to put the end goal was to put together a bill of quantity to give back to the donor to say, okay, so this many posts have been knocked down, this many transformers, you see that in English? Electrical transformer? I have a doubt. In French, it's transformateur électrique. Power stations, transformers, all this electrical mumbo jargon. Put that together in bill of quantity and say, okay, you need, and it turned out to be $800,000 at the end, you need $800,000 to repair this network and to provide electricity again to these people. And we actually managed to convince the Inter-American Development Bank to fund this. And now they have or are repairing this network. 4 years later, it takes time. So what was our job? We went there to each of these poles and power line, and we gathered this information. Okay, switch to this view. So, yeah, well, you can't, there's no miracle here. We can't zoom in enough, but you have all of these points here are poles, and the line, actually, okay, let me take this out. Where are my points? Posts, existing posts. Okay, all of these points are electrical posts. So I went there myself with another electrical engineer, so two expats or international people, let's say, and we worked with the team on the ground, the Haitian team there, of 15 people, and we walked, this is about 25 kilometers, this whole thing here, and we walked this whole network with these guys. We had different teams of 3 or 4 people, and we equipped them with smartphones and different measuring devices, and we trained them to gather this information. Then we walked from one post to another, the whole network, the whole length of the network, to gather information. So this post, what is it made of? Is it wood or is it concrete? How high is it? Does it have a transformer on it or not? Does it have 1, 2, or 3 phases on it? Etc. A whole list of information that we gathered throughout this whole network. And we then put together this final report with a bill of quantity saying, okay, you need to repair this many posts, this many electrical transformers, these phases, etc., in order to make it work again. So that's a really cool project I really liked working on. Plus, there's no conflict there. Okay, there's criminality, it's difficult, it's very poor, but it's the Caribbean, so can't complain. We'd actually, after work, we'd go swimming in the Caribbean Sea, and we'd actually had a beer or two in the sea, so it's really nice. Other projects I've worked on in other countries were a lot less pleasant, let's say. So that's one of the examples. And then in the end, you put together a report, this bill of quantity, you put together the information on the website, you put together a fact sheet. So that's one of the things we did with, just general graphics to say this is the state of the posts. These were the years they were, and this is how old they are, etc. All kinds of technical information here saying, okay, so The lights, some posts have lights. So, okay, 71 lights were fine. You had to replace 21, you had to add 2, and you had to repair 28. So we put together fact sheets, reports, we put information on the website. We also did a story map, which is this here, to communicate on this to our donor, who was the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They're the one who paid us to do this diagnosis, and then the Inter-American Development Bank paid for the repairs. So this is a story map, explains what the project is about. It's like a PowerPoint. This is MapX again. It's one of the functionalities of MapX. You can do this kind of spatial enabled PowerPoints. You'll go through the slides and it will zoom in and zoom out and explain the context and the work we did there. So yeah, why UNEP? Well, for many reasons, but also because we're trying to implement solar energy there. So that's how we got involved in this. Crisis management branch and solar energy, because it was and still is mostly based on diesel generators, but we're trying to green a lot of this while we're repairing this network. So this is a story map, it explains what's going on. Here's a video. The guy shot with a drone, so we use drones a lot too. I don't know if you're hearing the voice behind. It's a 2-minute video. I'm not going to show the whole thing. But we also we use all these tools a lot as well to get the information, to digitize some of this, and to communicate about our projects. So that's in the story map. How do I don't know if you're hearing the thing in the background. I don't know how to shut it off right now. I'll just let it run its course. So this is a story map to explain the project. So this is the communication part of the project and how we use these tools to visualize and communicate our data for marketing purposes, I guess, for donor engagement, for communication purposes. So that's the Haiti story. What else did I want to say about this? Oh yeah, I want to show you a couple of pictures. So, all right, that's field work. I mean, that's the power plant. It's that small, but that feeds 6,000 people with electricity. These are the Haitian technicians that are, gathering all this information on the ground. Another picture. So we really go post by post and study and gather all the information that you see on this image into our smartphones. This is funny. We're walking along and it's the World Cup, and turns out Haiti is a huge fan of Brazil. Their favorite football and soccer team is Brazil, and Brazil was playing. And of course, you don't have a TV in every home over there. So this one guy who has a TV, he brings it out, and you got 25 people gathering around it, and they're watching the game. And we were walking nearby, so we stopped and we watched the game for 10 minutes with our friends over there. So I don't know, thought that was funny. Interesting part of this work too, is you get to meet people and see how they live over there. And that's the team on one of their trucks where they have these big, I can't remember the word for that, but the poles or whatever they climb on to go repair the poles. That's Nigeria. All right, so then second, so I told you all about this, etc., is Nigeria. So in Nigeria, we have a pretty big project about oil pollution remediation. I remember when I was studying 15 years ago, it came up quite a bit. This was one of the main ecological catastrophes back in the day, before we started, talking about climate change a lot and greenhouse gas emission and other issues. In the southeast of Nigeria, so, okay, let's go back to Africa here. So this is Niger, right? This is Nigeria. There's a river, big river called the Niger River that flows from Mali through Niger and down to Nigeria. So it's the Niger Delta. This here is the delta of the Niger River. Now this place here in southern Nigeria is very oil rich, and it has really high quality crude oil. And there's oil exploitation and oil and gas exploitation going on there for the past 50 years in a very chaotic manner. There's corruption in the Nigerian government, and then there's greedy Western corporations that have not really taken care that much about the environment down there. And this kind of wild or savage, or whatever the word is, exploitation of oil has caused widespread pollution, oil and gas pollution in this delta. I mean, you go down there today, it's covered in oil. The whole place here is covered in oil. It's really filthy. So we don't talk about this that much anymore, but I remember 15 years ago, this being, you know, kind of the big environmental catastrophe that unfortunately has been dwarfed by other issues nowadays. But so we have a program there to help out the Ogoni people in Ogoni land to clean up some of this mess. So Ogoni land is around here. I don't know if you can see with my mouse, but it's an ethnicity, the Ogoni people. They sued Shell, who's one of the companies who's been doing this oil and gas exploitation down there, in a British court, and they won. And Shell was forced to pay $1 billion to the Ogoni people to clean up some of this, to help clean up some of this mess. And they called us, UN Environment, for technical assistance. So we work with the Ministry of Environment of Nigeria on Ogoni land only. So the oil pollution is all over the place, but we're only on the Ogoni land. That's where our mandate is. And so this dates about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we did a first huge environmental assessment, in-depth report in 2011 on the situation down there in Ogoni land. So it's this big PDF here that explains everything. And you have all these sites where we have fact sheets that explain what's going on, where we did sampling, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, you can click on the whole report, and then you got fact sheets for each of these sites. It'll give you the concentration and hydrocarbons for the water, groundwater samples, et cetera. So this is 10 years ago. You got, you know, web maps on the sites, et cetera. I wasn't working for UN Environment back then. So the first phase was the diagnosis. It's an environmental assessment. Here's what's going on. We did that 10 years ago, and then we wanted to get into a second phase of remediation, cleanup work. But life being as it is, entering a second phase where we're helping with cleanup. And oops, I should not have closed that. So doing that, okay, wait, I'm confused with my buttons here. Okay, we gathered all this information and put it on a website now. So this is what this map you're looking at is polluted sites and oil pollution extents and remediation, state of remediation. So it takes a bit of time to load, but through this portal you can access all the information. So a red site is a site where there's no remediation going on yet, and a green site is where they're working on it. And so if you click on this, you can access the fact sheets, etc. So I put this is one of my deliverables for this project. This is one of my products. I put together this website. It's not a website, it's well, it is a website, but it's an ArcGIS online web app is a technical term for this. So I didn't code a website is what I'm trying to say. I just configured one of these tools from this software developer called Esri that does GIS. And the software is called ArcGIS. So this website here is kind of an entry point to get all this information. If you click on this I here, and I should copy paste all these links if you're interested into the chat here. Okay, never mind. I'm going to get confused, but I'm happy to provide all these links afterwards if you wish. This is the one location online where you can access all information about this cleanup work in Ogoniland. So you got the I here, they'll give you information on what's going on. They'll give you the link to the environmental assessment in 2011, what's going on in 2019, 2020. It'll give you links to the official sites of the Nigerian governments, etc. And you can go hover around, pan left, right, zoom in, zoom out, and go to these sites and access information through the fact sheets and see what's going on. There's also a story map that we did. I'll show it really quickly for communication purposes, again, to present what's going on over there. And this is not working right now. Let's see if it'll load or not. In the meantime, going back to this picture, so these are Nigerian colleagues. Well, they're not colleagues, but they don't work for UNEP, they work for the Ministry of Environment. They're, peers, let's say. Doing some soil sampling in one of these contaminated sites. Just a few pictures from when I was there last year. So these are the guys working with me directly, the guys taking the GPS points and doing all the information management and helping me to get all this information to put in a georeference database. So it's accessible online to the public. This guy is awesome. Crap, it's been a year since I've seen him. I forget his name. Precious, his name is Precious. Really cool dude, very smart. Young, energetic, really interesting person. So let's see if this thing is loaded. No, it hasn't loaded. Why not? Bad gateway, okay. But I do want to show you, because that story map contains pictures of the extent of the oil pollution. So humor me just half a minute. I'll try to get this for you, and that'll be after 45 minutes, the end of my presentation. Okay, well, it seems like this website of mine is not working very well right now. Too bad. I'll go back to the PowerPoint, but there's some, on the story map, there's some pretty striking images of this oil in the rivers, on the ground, etc. It's pretty nasty. There you go. That's what I want to tell you about today. These two projects, the work we do at UN Environment in supporting these countries, and more specifically, my information management / engineering part of all of this.